We're going to move on to Chris's question. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
It says, what's the best way to transition from spender to spender from saver? Sorry, got that backwards.
There's not a problem in America where we have trouble transitioning from spender to saver. I feel like we are just the opposite of that.
Okay, I'm going to start that over. He said, what's the best way to transition to spender from saver in retirement? I know that's something that I'm going to struggle with. Yep. So he's looking ahead. What type of mindset shift or advice do you have for him as he thinks about that?
Well, you're not alone in this, Chris, because one of the difficulties that we see with financial mutants all the time is that all you're asked to do is exercise discipline for your entire working life and save money from the time that you start working all the way until the time you start working. And then magically, you're supposed to be able to flip a switch and be able to start spending that money. It's a hard thing to do. You have to kind of rail against something that you've likely spent 20, 30, 40 plus years mastering. And so it does become difficult. Now, your actual question, it sounds like, was what's the best way to transition? And what I generally counsel people who are at financial independence or at retirement or nearing retirement is one of the best things I think you can do is begin to test drive what it looks like. Begin to figure out, okay, especially if you've been saving, you've accumulated your number, you know you're where you're supposed to be. I like for folks to start test driving retirement before they get to retirement. Yeah, some of that is figuring out, do I actually like golf? Is pickleball a sport that I really want to do? Is travel something that gets me excited? Well, in that same vein, am I going to be okay spending money? Is it okay for me to start spending more money immediately prior to retirement so that I can begin to see what that feels like and how I feel about it? Because what's beautiful is if you can go from the working world, establish the lifestyle you want to live, let work fall off and maintain that lifestyle, it's just a much more seamless solution. So I think the best way to transition is to practice doing it in the few years leading up to retirement.
So I wrote down two things. These are going to seem like common sense, but I don't think people actually do it. First, do the math, meaning that you've got to, I find that when savers, I'm making the same mistake that Reby just did. When savers transitioning into spenders, we've spent 30 years building these resources, and it's just hard to change those good habits that we've been rewarded with. So first, do the math to figure out so you know where the guardrails are. So you know, hey, what can I spend per year? And then update that every year. There's nothing wrong with this. This is exactly what we do for a lot of clients is we just do check-in stress tests to see, hey, can we increase the spending? Do we need to cut back? Where are we at with this? So do the math. You got to know where the guardrails are. Second thing you need to do, get outside of the math. Because I want you
do the math.
No, you got to do the math. And everybody in personal finance does the math for you because they're like, hey, if you just save up $3 million or $3.5 million, you'll be great. No, that's the math. Now we got to get outside of the math because you have to ask yourself, what is my best life? What are my why? What are the goals? How do I maximize each decade that I'm on this planet? That's not going to be math-based. Look, math is going to be a component to it, but you got to start thinking about how you're going to spend this money because when you get to the reality of success and you realize, hey, you can't take it with you. So how do we navigate this well? I think you'll start figuring out, hey, maybe it's okay that this is where I'm spending more on the memories. I'm spending more on education for loved ones and all those positive things. And then here's something that will be a little bit of cold water to kind of keep you going. It's just like, if you're ever training for something, if you don't have a little fear in there, I feel like that you lose some motivation. But if I give you this statement, this will be the cold water you can remind yourself, or the smelling salts to kick you back into gear. Your kids and grandkids will have no trouble spending this money. So you go ahead, since you were the builder of this, let's go ahead and begin with the end in mind and start thinking about what's the best way to use this money with your fingers in the dough of life to maximize this opportunity, because kids, grandkids will have no trouble spending this money. So you might as well be purposeful with every day and every dollar that comes your way.